Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? It's your boy Cool Eagle back here in another video. Just want to come talk to you guys because, whoa, do we have a lot to talk about today in the world of NFL football, not only in the world of Eagles football, but all around the NFL, which is what this segment is about. So I took a little hiatus, vacation, post that horrific loss I seen the Eagles take in Tampa Bay. Again, shout out to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who really answered a lot of questions this season, especially at the quarterback and head coach position, because we know there are a lot of narratives coming in about Tampa Bay, about whether Baker Mayfield can re-energize his career and be what a lot of people expected him to be coming out as the number one overall draft pick and a Heisman Trophy winner. Solid win over the Eagles. The Eagles definitely have a lot of questions to answer in the offseason. Currently, there was a meeting between Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni. A lot of Eagles fans were on notice for this meeting just because of the expectation that Nick Sirianni was going to be released from the Philadelphia Eagles after having three consecutive seasons in the playoffs. One of the seasons, this season, where you experienced one of the most epic collapses in NFL history within a 6-7 game span, as the Philadelphia Eagles were one of the first 10, actually the first 10-1 team to not win 12 games, and we could throw away out a bevy of blame, though who's to blame for its collapse. But whether you blame the players or not, this is on the head coach, who is supposed to be, his role is to bring culture, a stability to the franchise. And what we've seen as Eagle fans in the last 6-7 games, um, those two elements were lacking for sure. And right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are in a position to hire a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, since it seems like Nick Sirianni will not be released from the Philadelphia Eagles, something that I'm sure upsets a lot of Eagles fans right now, just because there are some very warranted reasons as to why you would let go of Nick Sirianni. Yes. Um, he has three consecutive seasons in the playoffs. But if you remember, Doug Peterson, a coach who actually won the Super Bowl, was released the year after the next, um, in crazy fashion. If a lot of y'all remember that, the man was literally supposed to have a meeting with Harry Roseman, and Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, and obviously it didn't go well. They didn't like his plan, and he subsequently left to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and taking that head coaching job. And Nick Sirianni came in like a fresh drip of water out of heaven and inserted a culture that was youthful and exciting. Jalen Hurts started to look like, what you want him to be coming out of Oklahoma, a guy that can extend plays and not turn the ball over, which is something that we've seen in 2022. Now, obviously, coming into this season, there were a lot of questions because he was turning the ball over double of what he did in his MVP candidacy season in 2022. And you could obviously blame it to the offense, because there are now reports coming out about how Jalen Hurts was detached from Brian Johnson in a lot of ways. They can never get on the same page, which is why you saw a lot of the despondent and stoic nature um, on Jalen Hurts' face in many moments, especially in that last game versus Tampa Bay, where it seems like the game was getting out of reach, and you saw Dallas Goedert and Jalen Hurts sitting on the bench, and it appears Dallas Goedert was being very, very passionate, if you want to call it. A lot of people call it animated, but Jalen Hurts appeared to be stoic and despondent in that whole reaction, and that's something a lot of Eagles fans are taking a problem with, just because you see how passionate quarterbacks like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, those likes have all responded in adversity, very passionate. Um, you know, expression of anger, frustration, while also being accountable to some extent. And it goes back to the old saying, like, you can't work with people that you're close with. You can't work with people, that you're related to. And we knew what Brian Johnson's relationship was coming into the season with Jalen Hurts. Pretty much was a second dad to this man. So imagine working with the guy that you grew up with, and he's not keeping you accountable because he sees you as a son, and Jalen Hurts not being able to pick up on the offense and having that coach in his ear that's able to walk him through a lot of these things, and your head coach not keeping stability on this team and coming out and saying that this was his offense, and Brian Johnson, who we now know is possibly a scapegoat for Nick Sirianni, as now we know that that Brian Johnson has been getting interviews for head coaching jobs at various teams, Atlanta, Tennessee, Carolina, the sorts. So, Nick Sirianni definitely escaped the chopping block for sure, but we can definitely expect to see him being more aggressive going into this 2024 season. A lot of the media is going to come out and say this exact same sentiment of how Nick Sirianni's job is on the hot seat, just because, again, you got all this talent on the offensive side of the ball. Like, you got Jalen Hurts under contract, AJ Brown under contract, Devontae Smith, who's coming up on a contract, Dallas Goedert, one of the premier tight ends in the league. You're paying him a lot of money, and you're not utilizing him like the premier tight ends. Mark Andrews on the Baltimore Ravens, or Travis Kelce, or Sam Laporta. We're not seeing a diversification of the plays that are drawn up for Dallas Goedert. I think the new offensive coordinator that's going to come in here, reports are saying that that the guy from the Texans, the quarterback coach, Jerrod Johnson, is supposed to be a top candidate. He was responsible for the surgence of CJ Stroud over there and his fantastic rookie seasons. Probably some of the best football that we've ever seen from a rookie. Definitely, drop his name in the ballot for offensive rookie of the year. I know what Jahmyr Gibbs and all those other guys are doing, but this is some of the best rookie quarterback play anybody has ever seen. I know a lot of people talk about RG3, but CJ Stroud is the real deal. He took his team to the playoffs and beat a hot Cleveland team at home, blew them out in great fashion, and then you come into a buzzsaw against the Ravens defense that wasn't going to allow those deep passes, and then you're already short at wide receiver as well. But this isn't about the Texans and their downfall. This is more about what the Eagles are going to do next. I think that the Eagles' plan to revitalize this offense and really take advantage of the talent is to bring in an offensive coordinator and that knows about quarterbacks and what their strengths and weaknesses are. Because I don't think Brian Johnson too much really knew like how to scheme Jalen Hurts in this offense. A lot of the plays were behind the line of scrimmage. You got a lot of questionable quarterback draws when you need to throw the ball downfield. So I think Jerrod Johnson, and looking at him and what he's done for CJ Stroud, is going to do wonders for Jalen Hurts, because one, it's not a guy that he's close to. He's not somebody that Jalen Hurts grew up with. He's a guy that owes nothing to Jalen Hurts and will actually give him sound coaching when it comes to him being a quarterback, because we definitely saw a regression in Jalen Hurts in this offense, in this Nick Sirianni offense. Not saying that he was a bad quarterback this year. I mean, he was still top 10 in QBR. He was a top 5 quarterback in pass EPA. And he's still somebody that you got to look out for on the defensive side of the ball. And we're going to see the NFL top 100 come out this summer, and Jalen Hurts is going to be on that list. Like, probably not top 5, probably not even top 20, but he's going to be on that list because a lot of players around the league still have the utmost respect for Jalen Hurts and what he brings to the football game, right? So The Eagles are going to bring in a guy that helped a rookie have one of the best rookie seasons of all time and see what they do from there. I think Nick Sirianni is going to be really happy about this, with him coming out in a presser saying that he's a head coach of the team. He's not the head coach of the offense. He's not the head coach of the defense, which is true, but why you say that though? I mean, head coach is head coach, man. Like, you're supposed to man down the hatch on both sides of the ball, even with good offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators. And there's a lot we can say about Nick Sirianni, but he's definitely on the hot seat going into 2024. Just because, again, you have to maximize this talent, because a Super Bowl window is so small, and you have all these good teams that are now coming up in the ranks. We saw what Green Bay is up to with Jordan Love. Jordan Love is going to get a bag. Baker Mayfield answered a lot of questions for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Definitely going to be some talks in the offseason about him and his potential contract, because he may not be a Patrick Mahomes getting a quarter, $500 million contract, but 3 years, 30 million with like 80 mil guaranteed. I think that's a great deal for Baker Mayfield. And then if he happens to take you farther than next year, you can easily just, restructure that contract and make him a top 10 quarterback, give him top 10 quarterback money. Because we've seen what it did for Kirk Cousins over there in Minnesota. He got a playoff win, just as many playoff wins as Baker Mayfield does. So if you give him Kirk Cousins money, who's going to be mad at that? Who's honestly going to say that that's a bad contract for Baker Mayfield? But I don't know. That's something that media is definitely going to discuss in the offseason when there's no more football and either Kansas City or the Baltimore Ravens take the Super Bowl. And speaking of Super Bowl, right, we definitely got to get into who's probably going to take the chip, because right now there are a lot of Super Bowl favorites right now. I think half the country is probably going for a Detroit-Baltimore Super Bowl. A lot of the non-casual fans are probably saying, like the Chiefs and the Lions, just because of the 49ers. Well, me personally, no, I think it's going to be the Chiefs and 49ers. Like, I think most non-casual fans would say the Chiefs and the 49ers, just because you have the best team in the NFC and the best team in the AFC. But if you really look at it, though, and again, that's a segment that we're going to get into, right, on another video, right, later this week. But as far as the Eagles, they're doing a superb job on the offensive side of the ball. Now, what a lot of Eagles fans are concerned about is the defensive side of the ball, because you got to think about it. For the past 3 years, we went through, for the past 2 seasons, we've been through 3 different defensive coordinators. You had Jonathan Gannon for a full season. You let him go for what he did in the Super Bowl. That collapsed where the Chiefs scored on 6 consecutive drives. And then you let him go to Arizona. You bring in Sean Desai, who literally got your team to a 10-1 record. And a lot of Eagles fans were having problems with how he was calling defense, even though you look at a lot of our wins, he shut out a lot of offenses in the second half. Kansas City, he did a real good job against Kansas City, and there are a lot of other games that we can go down the list. But you got to 10-1 with Sean Desai, and then you make a change in defensive coordinator who already had an identity with the defense, and then you switch the guy who y'all call Coach Pencil, and the defense has to find identity all over again. And it was proven to be a really, really, really bad move. A really bad move that caused the defense to be one of the worst in league history on third down, definitely franchise history on third down. We just couldn't stop anybody, and that showed its his ugly head against the Cardinals, the Giants, and then you get smacked in the second half by Tampa Bay just because your defense just can't tackle. They're not disciplined. You don't have that much talent in the linebacker room. Coverage is very suspect, and that doesn't give the defensive line enough time to be what they were in 2022. So right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are talking about Vic Fangio as a top target for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know last year Vic Fangio was in talks about being the coordinator for this defense, but due to timing and the acts of Jonathan Gannon, it just didn't happen, and he ended up taking the job in Miami, and now he's coming back to Philadelphia to be closer to his family. And pretty much what his defense is relying on is the secondary and linebackers. It's a very cover four scheme across the board, but it does have a lot of zone. So you take the Philadelphia Eagles out of man coverage, which is something that James Bradberry was getting beat on a lot. One of the worst corners in the league at man-to-man coverage. That cost us some games. And with Vic Fangio's defense, I actually don't have a problem, just because now you're going to get the maximization and the possible revitalization of that secondary that you're paying a lot of money. With Kevin Byard, who we don't know is going to get extended, but we have young guys that have some play experience, so maybe they get a chance to play in this Vic Fangio defense. That's apparently like a lot of fun to defenders. So with this a new defensive scheme under Vic Fangio, we're going to see possibly a revitalization of James Bradberry, because if you cut him, I believe July 1st, post July 1st, you only take like a $4.36 million cap hit. According to SalaryDog.com. But if you keep him, you're possibly eating like $17.5 million. And y'all can check the salary cap on that. And James Bradberry is known to be a cluer. Like when he came to the Philadelphia Eagles, he wasn't really known as a man corner. He was really known as a guy that played a really good zone and was able to undercut routes. So in this scheme, maybe we see a better James Bradberry than we saw last year. Maybe we get to maximize the time left with Darius Slay, not putting him in so much man coverage at the age that he's at, and limiting injury. But what the defense is going to have to do as well, outside of all that, is just to have that identity back. Getting after the quarterback, tackling the ball carrier at first contact, not allowing so many yards after the catch. It's going to be an identity thing. And what Vic Fangio is going to bring, of course, the defenses that he's coached in the past. I really like what he did with Miami in this playoffs and this past regular season. Despite losing 6 key starters, he was able to keep that defense alive and well, and which helped the Miami Dolphins stay in a lot of football games that they probably shouldn't have been in. So I like Vic Fangio. And just let me know what your thoughts on that in the comments are. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be Nick Sirianni's hot seat season coming in 2024. There are going to be a lot of narratives floating around the offseason, and we'll be around to cover a lot of those. So again, make sure you guys like, subscribe to the video. But as far as around the NFL, I'm really liking what I see out of this current playoff football series. Especially in the Bucs-Lions game, where we really got to see how important linebacker play is, something that the Philadelphia Eagles have not really heavily invested in since I was a kid back in the day. Past 15 years, I would say the Eagles have not invested very well in the linebacker position, and we saw a lot of how important that play is in the Bucs-Lions game. where like a linebacker was able to get like the game-winning interception, even though the game was already won. But yeah, the linebacker getting the game-sealing interception, and then in the Packers 49ers game, linebackers getting like tackles for losses and 2 interceptions to seal the game. And just the fact that what this young talent is going to mean next year, because now when you talk about top teams in the NFL, you have to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. You got to talk about the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love, man. You got to talk about these young up and coming teams, the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud is definitely top of the list for sure. So I'm loving what I'm seeing as playoff football. As far as what's going to come out of the championship rounds, it's a lot of good stories because you got the Detroit Lions, a city that haven't seen really much of anything of that atmosphere for the past 3 decades. Definitely made it before the Cowboys, which is crazy, right? Another narrative there. Another story there. And then you got the San Francisco 49ers, who have been in the past 4 of 5 NFC Championship games. That experience, are they gonna like just be able to put a sting in that Cinderella story of Detroit in advance to their second Super Bowl in the past few years? You know what I'm saying? Like, because there are a lot of narratives about Brock Purdy and what the Green Bay defense was able to do to him and the drop interception. So, and we know that Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, is going to bring a lot of pressure and hope to get Brock Purdy off his spot to cause him to make a lot of the mistakes that the Green Bay Packers just couldn't capitalize off of. And um, it's going to be a good game for sure. That's why it's an NFC conference game. Only the best with the most amazing stories that get to make it to these games. So we're definitely going to get deeper into that later this week for sure. And then on the other side of the AFC, you got 2 of the AFC's juggernauts. You got a 2-time MVP in Lamar Jackson, because he's going to win the regular season MVP, or like whether he loses this game or not. And then you got Patrick Mahomes, the previous Super Bowl MVP, the guy who's been in 6 consecutive AFC Championship games, 3-3 in these games. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's going to be some good football, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think. We definitely have some more content on the way, just to talk about these playoffs and more about the Philadelphia Eagles. So again, tap in, like, subscribe. I love doing this with you guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take it easy.